Are you struggling with getting legatos right? Or do you feel like it just takes a lot of time? You wish there was a faster way? And this video is definitely for you. Hi there, this is Sam. Nice to see you here. I create videos on how to create music on a DAW, especially orchestration, and how to make that process a lot faster and also focusing on your creativity. If that interests you, why not subscribe? Let's get going with today's video. Legatos, particularly string legatos, are really important in order to make your orchestra or your music sound that a little bit more real. But a lot of people struggle with getting it right from the start, finding timing, and also there tends to be a lot of tweaking afterwards, which can be frustrating, taking too much time and making it not so fun to create music. In this video, I'm going to show you a few tricks that really speed up your process so that you can pretty much just play your line and that's it. Maybe some minimal tweaking afterwards, but we're not talking about all that small detail stuff that really hinders your creativity. Let's get going and I'll show you what I mean. So first, an apology. As you can hear, I have a little bit of a cold still. I hope you can bear with me. I'll try to be extra clear. So I'm working with a legato patch here. It happens to be the East-West. First violin's legato slur has a slur transition. Lighter patch, 12 dynamic layers, and niente. Niente means that when I go all the way down with the dynamic layer, you won't hear the instrument at all. If there's no niente, you will still hear the instrument, albeit low, where you are at the bottom of the dynamic layer. These tricks I'm going to show you works with any legato library, so you don't have to have the East-West. Okay, so when you play a legato violin, there are a few problems that seem tiny and subtle, but it does affect your performance and your recording. If I'm just going to play in directly a little line with a click, let's see what happens. Now, there are quite a few problems happening here for those who paid attention. As you can see in the beginning, I'm following the beat rather well, but after a while you see that I'm playing ahead. And this is a very small difference. And normally it doesn't matter because we don't need to be that perfect. That's not what I'm after. But what is happening here is that my musician ear is starting to feel that, when I hit the key, the sound is coming later. And it does happen because in a legato patch, there is an attack sound and a legato transition, which makes the sound coming later than the beat. So I start to adjust my playing, and you can see that here, that I'm starting to play a little bit before the beat in order to get the transitions to be right. This might not be a huge deal, but depending on the library, this can really mess your rhythm. Again, it's not about being perfect. That's not what I'm saying. It's about being not before or behind the beat. I've noticed I have to do several retakes because I find I'm not really having a good rhythmical feel. So the first thing I do is that I add an instrument that has a direct attack. Strings don't have a direct attack, it has a slow attack. Piano is the easiest one. Yeah. I want to hear the piano at the same time, but I don't want to record it, so I put on monitor, turn off record enable, and now when I play, I will hear both instruments. But the piano will help me to feel like I'm on the pulse. When I hit the key, I will hear a sound. So if I listen to the piano instead, I will be much more rhythmically tight. If you have a MIDI keyboard that has sounds itself, you can also use that by just turning up the volume. Then you won't record that, but you will still hear the piano. Okay, let's try that then. Now I'm much more tight. And just for argument's sake, I'm going to quantize this. I normally don't, but I will do now just to show you more clear what's going to happen. As you can see, I'm very tight now, obviously, because I quantized. Let's listen to what it sounds like. So there's a problem here. What is that? Well, the violin sounds like they're behind, yeah? And here, there is even a gap. So I got a new attack there, and I didn't want that. So there's two problems we can fix here with Cubase or in other DAWs. And what is that? Well, normally I used to do this. I select everything and just move everything to the left. Oh, that's fairly quick, but it's time consuming and quite fiddly. So Cubase or any DAW, as a matter of fact, has a solution here. You go into track delay and you just go back a little bit. So in this case, I've noticed that with East and West, minus 140 is perfect for this. You could try 150 or minus 130, see if that matters. Works best for you, I mean. And other libraries will have a different delay. So you have to experiment. But once you know it, it's set. You don't have to do it again. Now let's listen to this. See, much more in time. There's still some problems, and we're going to address those too. I don't have to worry about quantizing. I'm just quantizing this so I show you. But otherwise, I wouldn't have to quantize. It would sound pretty good. What happens here? Well, the first note we do have to add because the attack on the first note on most string libraries, some of them do have attack control, so you can look into that. But in this patch, there is no real attack control. It will sound more on the beat. So that means it's now going to sound like it's too fast. So I have to move the first one in every phrase. Okay? But that's a lot less work than, messing with all these notes. Okay? Second problem is that there's a gap, and that just happens due to play. And so I could go around and, drag all these, and that would be a lot of work. There's also a command that I have set up in Cubase that fixes my lengths. I quantize the ends. So now they all perfectly line up to each other. And that's a good trick. That normally works. But quite a few legato libraries, in order for the legato transition to really work, there needs to be an overlap. East-West is not like this, actually. Well, I'm not entirely sure. But it seems the legato transition works if it's perfect but no overlap. So if you work with another library, or just to be sure, I use a legato function. And I have a button for that. Okay. Oops, sorry, I have to select them all. Now, it's not just going to the next node, it's overlapping. And that I have set up this way. Go back, I can select all these. Actually, we're just going to quantize them so it's easier to see. Now they're all matching perfectly. I go to scale legato and I want this to be 100%. Yeah. And you see they moved a little bit here because this is, I'll go back. Now they're not moving. And now an overlap. How much overlap do I want? Well, I can go back and forth here, you see. So just put this overlap to a plus number, 10, 15. It doesn't really matter that much. And now every time I do a legato, I have a command for that. It happens to be L. I actually don't know what it is in Cubase, but I think I said it myself. You have to go into editor and try that. So everything is overlapping, and there won't be any gaps between the notes. So let's listen to this. Yeah, there we go. Now it's pretty tight. Now again, the point is not to be perfect with the grid, but I don't have to mess so much with the notes later. Now, one more thing, and this is more subtle. This becomes more clear if you have a different patch loaded. I have also an East and West patch loaded here. The difference here is that I have also a portato sample included. It says 6 dynamic layers. I just chose a lighter patch. But the difference is that it has both slur and portato. And that is controlled with the velocity layer. So, for example, if I play a note and I hit the next key hard, fast transition. If I hit the key softly, there will be a portamento slur. And maybe you want that sometimes. In most cases, you don't want it all the time, but you might want it for a specific effect or specific kind of music. So if you have one of those patches loaded, which is a good patch to have, it can be really good to have that flexibility. It's hard to control that with your keyboard. And if you're like me, you tend to play the piano with different velocities because you're trained that way. Listen. See, I am controlling the dynamics on the piano with how hard I hit the keys. And this is very difficult for me to stop doing. So in my strings, though, I don't want that. I want to hit the keys the same way, or otherwise I have to go in and edit all that later. Okay? So what I do is that I go into MIDI inserts, and I'm pretty sure this is the same on all DAWs. It just looks a little bit different. If you don't see this panel here, Cubase users, you open it here. It's called MIDI modifier. I turn it on, and I make sure record enable is on, otherwise this effect won't be recorded. And I just put max here. The way it works is that it says velocity shift. That means that it's adding this velocity to any note you play. So I just do the maximum here. You can do less if you want. It's adding that number to the velocity you play yourself. So no matter how I hit the keys, it will be the maximum velocity layer. So even if I play softly, I will still get the fastest transition because the velocity is the highest. Okay. Now on a piano, you don't want this. And I'm going to show you quickly why, because it's going to sound awful, basically. If I just add this, that much, I get the hardest velocity, and that's just a disaster on a piano. I just want to show you that it's actually working. But since these strings are not controlled by the velocity in terms of volume, it's just a really good thing. I'm going to add it to this one too. And you might feel like this on this patch, it doesn't make that huge of a difference, but it does actually. Even if this patch doesn't have portamento included, if you play softly on the keys with a low velocity, you get a slower transition. It's very subtle in this patch, but it's there. And you can hear it when you do fast passages. It doesn't work so well. Turn this on. Much smoother, okay? And some people might say again, well, I don't want that because I want the more organic transition as I play, and I want to control it with my fingers so I don't have to add it later. That might be very true for you. Personally, I found that it's better to do this and then go into the key editor and mix and mess with the keys that I want to have a slower transition. I found that quicker work, okay? So what I have in here now is that I have the piano, so I can hear something I can play. I have the MIDI modifier selected, so it's always maximum. Now let's just try to record something. Okay, the only thing I have to do here is to hit that legato command that I have. Let's just see what that sounds like. I have not quantized the beginnings. Obviously, I have not worked with the dynamic layers or the vibrato, and that is very important. That will make it sound more real. But I hope you could hear that my timing is very good here, and I don't have to quantize. It will be more natural. So the only thing I did here, I recorded, and I hit that L button that I have so that the transitions are perfect. And you see how much faster that went? It might be a really good idea to create a template so that you don't have to redo this every time. But also, as you can see, the implementations are quite easy to do. It doesn't take that long. These tricks were really helpful for me. It really sped up my workflow. And if it did for you, perhaps hit that like button. And perhaps considering subscribing as well. I will have more videos like these coming very soon. Anyway, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to put them in the comments below. This is Samuel, signing out. Take care.